In this video, we're going to take a look at how you can create woodland images with a sense of depth and atmosphere, even when you haven't got those ideal foggy conditions. And if you stick around until near the end of the video, something quite unexpected happened. I hadn't planned for this when I originally started filming the episode, but it ended up making everything a lot more interesting and a lot more useful. So I think what I'll do now is I'll send you over to me in the woods about 2-3 weeks ago. Then we'll come back here and we'll take a look at some of the images I captured and we'll see what worked, what didn't, and what we've learnt. Okay, I'll see you over in the woods. So as today's episode is all about creating depth in our images when we haven't got the perfect conditions. And if you've done a bit of woodland photography, you'll know that having fog is the ideal conditions really. It separates out the trees, it creates atmosphere, and it just complements kind of woodlands very well. And it's my favourite time to shoot in there. But I didn't want to rely on the fact that I needed fog to take great photos in the woodlands, so I pushed myself to come out in non-ideal conditions and try and see if I could still create some depth in the images. And there's a couple of things I've noticed that I think can help to create still an image with a lot of depth and a lot of interest when you haven't got these ideal foggy conditions. So I'll just hop behind the camera now and we can have a look at some of these techniques that you can use. So as you can see, I've got my main subject here, which is this little evergreen tree. I really like the contrast with the colours here on the orange of the bark on these trees. And what I'm trying to do here is I've got these morning rays of sunlight coming back through the background, and I think they help to add some depth and separation to our foreground and our main subject over here, as well as adding some definition, some shape and some form to these trees here. And the backlight works really well with evergreen trees like this. It helps create kind of a little sort of glow around the edge. It looks really nice. So I'll take a few photos and we can have a look. Okay, so we've still got our same scene here, and I'll just show you by zooming in. So around here this is about just around 70 mil. You can see it's just created some nice compression between our main subject, the evergreen tree, and these nice trees with the orange bark here. It's just sort of compressed everything together, and it's helped to kind of blur out this background a bit. And that's a great tip for if you haven't got foggy conditions and you want to create some separation between your background and your subject. It's just to use a bit of a longer focal length. Helps just compress everything together and draw your attention just to your main point of focus. I'll take some pictures now and we can have a look at them just to explain everything in a bit more detail. Okay, so we've come to another one of my favourite parts of this woodlands, and here you can see we get these amazing white wooden anemones on the floor, these little beautiful flowers this time of year. And we also have this amazing gnarled tree in the background with all this moss on it, which makes for a great character for photos. So I love taking pictures in this area. And here we're going to have a look at how, including some foreground elements and again using back and side light, we can still create some great atmosphere and some great depth in our woodland images. Okay, so I've just come to the other side of that amazing tree now, and as you can see, it's just incredible. It has so much character, and the green moss on it's just amazing. Makes for a great photo subject. And as I also mentioned, there's these incredible little white flowers on the floor here, these wooden enemies. And what I'm going to do in the image, if I come closer, I'm going to use these as a foreground element, so I'm going to have some quite close to the lens, and then as you can see they repeat all the way through the image, and having these repeating patterns through there, that helps to create depth. And having something very near, a wide angle, as you may know if you've done any wide angle photography before, also helps to create this depth. And in this area, hopefully when the cloud clears a bit more, we should get some really good side light, some backlight, and some rays of light coming through here. And I think all of this helps to add some depth to the image and just draw the viewer's eye into it all the way through into the background over here. Okay, so I've got the camera on the tripod now just to help show you how I'm trying to frame up this shot. And I think because I've got a 24mm lens here, I haven't got a super wide, what I'll do is I'll probably do a vertical panorama. So I'll take an image just sort of down here to get some of these flowers in, and then I'll take one a bit higher up here so that I get this great tree in here, and so that you can see the flowers as they lead off here to create that depth. I think I'll probably take a vertical, so I'll take a portrait and a landscape version of this shot, because I think both could work quite nicely. And then what I'll do is we'll have a look at those together, and we'll see if we've helped to create some depth and some atmosphere in the image. Okay, so what I did in the end was I actually raised the tripod up a bit higher, and that allowed me to get these branches in without them appearing in this kind of blown highlight section here, the sky, which I wanted to avoid getting because I still wanted to get these great shapes of this branch. And then if I do kind of a panorama, a vertical panorama, I can still get the flowers in the foreground here. So basically just by raising the tripod a bit, if I show you as I lower it, you can see even when I get a bit lower, these branches are just creeping up into this highlight region, which I don't want to get in the image because I think it'll be distracting. So just by raising it up a little bit, I'm able to get these branches here into more of this kind of background region with the other trees away from these bright highlights. The other thing I've noticed with this image, which I think could be useful for other images as well, is as I said, I'm trying to include some of these flowers here in the foreground. What you need to be careful of is that when you do that, you've got to remember with this image, for example, I want to create the depth, so I want the eye to follow along here. So I don't want the foreground to be at sacrifice to that. So I'm having to try and find kind of a happy balance between getting some foreground flowers in to create some great foreground interest, and also keeping all of those lovely flowers here to create the depth all the way through the image. Hi, so I know the point of this video is to be without fog, but literally about 3 days later I opened my window and there was so much fog, so I ran out. I haven't even had breakfast, but I'm back in my favourite area, and I'll just show you how it looks. Yes, it's amazing. I've got all this lovely fog in the background. Yeah, it just looks absolutely incredible. So I'm really glad I came back out again. Yeah, and I'll get some more photos and we can compare them. So this is quite exciting. I didn't plan for this at all. So yeah, I'll take some here with the fog and we can compare them to the ones we got without the fog. And I think they'll still both be really, really nice photos, but with very different atmospheres. Yeah, having all this fog, that was an amazing surprise. I really wasn't expecting that at all, and I didn't intend this to be in the video. But I think that's one of the amazing things about landscape photography is you don't know what you're going to get with the weather. Everything's always changing. And it's the dynamicness of it that makes it exciting, I think, that you do get these golden days where you suddenly get some fog you weren't expecting. And yeah, and I'm really glad I ran out the door. I'm a bit hungry because I didn't have breakfast, but I mean, yeah, it looks amazing, and I think I've got some really cool photos from coming out, so I don't regret it. And I think what we can do now is we'll head back home over into Lightroom, and we can compare some of the photos I took from today in the fog and the ones I took previously earlier in the video with the sunlight. And I think both could be really interesting and both will be really cool, but they'll have very different atmospheres. But I think that'd be really exciting to compare. So I'll see you over in Lightroom. Okay, I'm not quite home yet. I decided, because it was on the way home and we still had some good fog, I went back to the first location that I showed you again, and I got some photos of it in the fog as well. And I think it'll be really interesting to have a look at those and compare the foggy ones with the ones with the sunlight coming through the trees. But yeah, I'm really excited to get back now and have a look on Lightroom. Okay, welcome back. You can see why I got excited. I wasn't expecting that fog to come in when I started this video. The whole original intention was just to look at how we could create images without the fog, but seeing as I got it just a couple of days later, I thought it'd make for a really interesting video to compare some of the images. So what I've done is I've got them loaded up on the computer, and we can have a little look through them and see what's worked and what hasn't and what we've learnt. And it'd be really interesting to see if you preferred the foggy images or the sunny images. So if you leave a comment below and let me know which ones you liked and why. I always find it really interesting to see why people like different photos and the different feelings and emotions they get from those images. So yeah, if you leave a comment below and I'll get back to you. Okay, so I've just got the first panorama that I took open up on the screen now. And we can just take a look at the different parts of it and see, yeah, how we've managed to create some depth and a bit of atmosphere in the image. So this one, I think it's about 4 or 5 photos stitched together, and I think I shot it at around 60 millimeters, just to compress everything in a little bit. So I quite like doing the panorama because we had kind of interesting trees over here, and we've also got quite a kind of nice sort of accent of yellow leaves over here, and some here. So it was quite a big scene, and I wanted to get all of it in. And I opted for a panorama just for that kind of nicer compression of the image rather than using kind of a wide angle, which I think, quite often using a wide angle in woodland photography starts making the image a little bit distracting. There's a bit too much going on and everything gets kind of pushed away a bit too far. Anyway, so let's have a look at the depth in the image. So if you remember, the sun was up here somewhere. So the sunlight was coming down from here, kind of backlighting and side lighting this tree and these trees over here. And what that's done is, in the background here behind the tree, it's created these nice light, dark regions. So the background's a bit lighter and it has these kind of light and dark regions, and it kind of separates it from the foreground over here, which is overall a bit darker. It does have some light patches here too. But I think it's just helped create that separation between the foreground and the background, as well as adding a bit of interest. The other thing that the backlight and the sidelight's done is you can see it's kind of illuminated the tree here, and that's just created a bit of depth to the main subject. And it's creating this amazing side light on these trees here, because one of the main things that I liked about this scene was these orange trees and the contrast of the orange and the green and blue kind of colours of the evergreen tree. And the other thing that the side and backlight's done is it's illuminated these little yellow leaves. They haven't quite turned green again yet. Still got some of that autumn colour when I took this. Created this amazing kind of glow to them. Same over here as well. So that's quite a good tip as well, is with the woodland images, if you get there a bit earlier in the morning and get that early morning side backlight, it creates a lot more pleasing shadows and light on the trees. When you go at midday, it does become a lot more difficult. It is still possible to get nice shots, but it's a lot more tricky. So I definitely recommend getting there a bit earlier if you can.
Okay, so I've just got the second image loaded up now, and if you remember, this one was the one that was taken at a slightly longer focal length. So the reason I did that was just sort of compressing the background and the main subject a bit. You can see it's kind of helped throw this background out of focus a bit more, and it's also helped compress in the main elements, these trees, the main subject here, and this tree here more slightly in the foreground. So sort of help push everything together, and that's a really good thing to do in woodland photography, especially when you haven't got the fog. It's just to sort of pick out one tree or set of trees and just focus in on those. Now what I've used these trees to kind of frame our main subject here, and just by kind of using that longer focal length and compressing in the background, it really helps to separate out the subject from what was otherwise quite a chaotic scene. We're also helped out by the fact we've got the nice morning light again. It creates this kind of hazy feel in the background, which helps create the contrast with the main subject here. We've also got these nice kind of shadow and light regions, which creates a bit of kind of atmosphere and a bit of drama to the image. So I've just put these two images together to compare the one from the foggy day and the one from the sunny day. I think I actually prefer the one from the sunny day overall. Just the side light, I really like the side light on this tree, and I really like the patterns on the floor, the kind of the light and the dark regions here. And I think just having that golden glowing side light really suits this scene, because again, it looks quite enchanted to me. I almost wondered if the fog scene, it would have been slightly better if we had even thicker fog. The thing I did like though was I was able to get a bit more of the branches in of the tree, because I really like these branches that are creeping out like this. And it just wasn't possible on the day with the sunlight, because it was kind of a really bright highlight region here, and it made it really difficult to control the exposure and without it being too distracting. Because it'd also been raining on the foggy day, the colours of the leaves had become a lot more saturated. We had these nice sort of deeper greens, and I think that looks really nice too. And we do have a little bit of side light coming in, because it wasn't very thick fog. We still had some light coming through, and I do like both scenes, but I do think I prefer this scene up here. I'm surprised by that, because I thought I would definitely prefer the foggy one, but I'd be really interested to see which one you prefer in the comments below. Okay, lastly, I've just loaded up the two panoramas, the one from the sunny day and the one from the foggy day, just so we can have a look at the differences. Obviously, one of the main differences is I took the foggy one a bit wider. I took a couple of photos either side, so it's a bit bigger than the sunny day one. And the reason for that is because it was foggy, I think I was able to get a lot more of the scene in that I wanted without it becoming too distracting. And I think that's one of the main disadvantages of this scene, is it's a little bit too busy. I still think we've managed to create some good separation and atmosphere in the image, but I think I'd say that's the main thing that hasn't quite worked. It's just a little bit too chaotic and a bit too busy. I do still think we've got a lot of great depth and a lot of atmosphere. I really like the side light on the trees and the glow of the trees here from the backlight and over here as well. But yeah, I think that's the main disadvantage of this one, is it's just a little bit busy. But I do still think your eye's drawn to the main location here because of the contrast of the light and the dark. So I think that has worked well. In the foggy one, obviously we have this great contrast between the blue of the fog and the orange of the trees and the yellow of the leaves, which I really like. And we do still have a little bit of side light on these trees over here, which I think is because the fog wasn't that thick, so we still had some sunlight coming through it. And again, in both images though, I think the main subject is very clearly this little evergreen tree. And I think that's mostly based on the composition, kind of framing it between these orange trees. So yeah, I'd be really interested to see which one you prefer in the comments, and if you think one's worked or one hasn't, and the reasons why. So I really hope you found this video useful, and I hope it's helped show you how you can create a sense of atmosphere and depth in your images, even if you haven't got those ideal foggy conditions. I was very lucky that we also got some fog here, and it was really interesting to compare just how different the locations look depending on the weather. And that's one of the really exciting things about woodland photography, that it's so dynamic and it's always changing. If you have found this video useful, I'd ask if you could hit the like, the subscribe and the notification bell. I'll have a lot more landscape and woodland videos coming soon. So thank you, and I'll see you next time.